There's no, music, there's no
Right.
theatrics. It's just you're just listening to these men speak. And I think that in of itself is profound and is part of the beauty of the experience. And this time around, we have brothers from Toronto, from Hamilton, from Oakland, and from London, England. So you get all of these different perspectives of what life is like for black men.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Hey, Dwayne, it is awesome to have you with me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I am very excellent, man. Just looking forward to our discussion. It's been a minute since I haven't seen you, so it's
Yeah,
great to be here to connect.
yeah, no. It's funny how the virtual world is. Like, I mean, people are a click away these days, and oftentimes you end up connecting more people in the virtual world than the real world. But we'll take what we can get, man.
No, absolutely. I mean, we just gotta roll with the technology and with the times, and just try to stay as relevant as possible.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So I mean, speaking of staying relevant, when brothers speak, definitely has been doing that for quite some time. You've got a show coming up just over a week, I guess, from now, or just under a week, rather, I should say. This is a 25th year. This man. Tell us
Yeah.
about what brothers speak for those who, for the one or two people out there that haven't had an opportunity to check it out. Tell them what it's all about, please.
All right. So When Brothers Speak is a platform that I created. It's a show where I have six black male spoken word artists from different places who come and get on stage and just speak about the world that they live in, through the art of the spoken word. And as you mentioned, this is the 25th anniversary of the show. It's going on December 9th at the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts, and it's such a beautiful thing because there's so many stereotypes that exist about black men, and this show dispels all of those. And two, people always say, well, we never hear from black men. And this is a show where all you do is hear from black men. They're the only people on the stage. There's no, music, there's no theatrics. It's just you're just listening to these men speak. And I think that in of itself is profound and is part of the beauty of the experience. And this time around, we have brothers from Toronto, from Hamilton, from Oakland, and from London, England. So you get all of these different perspectives of what life is like for black men, how they see the world, how they see their place in the world outside of simply sports and entertainment, which
Right.
is where people are comfortable seeing us, not so much listening to us speak about love, family, other issues that we might be going through. So it's totally a roller coaster ride of emotions and feelings that people go through from one brother to the next on the show as they present their work.
The piece around when brothers speak that I've always appreciated is the level of vulnerability that you as an artist you've got to demonstrate. Right? You got to get up there and talk about the things that hurt you, or maybe the things that make you upset, or even on the other side, the positive side, the things that bring you joy and happiness and fulfillment. When you talk about where brothers aren't used to being seen, or the things you're not used to hearing from them, it's that vulnerability piece. I wonder if you, Dwayne, if you could sort of expand on why vulnerability is so important.
Well, it's interesting because we often shy away from vulnerability when in reality it's the vulnerability that often connects us the most. More people are familiar with losing than there are people familiar with winning. But everybody wants to be a winner. But we all have losing in common because we lose more than we win.
Right.
So when you share that vulnerability, it allows people to realize, oh, wait, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling. I'm not alone in this experience, in what I'm thinking. There's other people going through these things, and it gives us permission to give a voice to these things, to actually acknowledge that these things happen. And then you get out into the foyer after the show, and people are like, oh man, I went through that same thing. And you're like, oh, I thought it was only me. But the vulnerability just gives people that permission to accept
Yeah.
life and the things that we go through in life, and to understand that you don't have to just, go through these things on your own. You're probably sitting beside somebody who's been through something very similar to you, but
I think someone in the classroom like you are right now,
yeah,
right?
I'm out of school right now. I'm teaching at a school, and there's the dog
Class
that's
is in
going on.
session. Teacher Dwayne is speaking. Let's go.
Absolutely. So I think, just being able to break down those walls and be like, oh, we're all going through things.
Right.
And the vulnerability is part of it. It's actually a lot of work to hide the vulnerability.
Yeah.
There's a lot of freedom that comes with just letting things go, with just being able, hey, this is what I'm going through. And then you realize there's a people around you who want to support you through it.
Yes.
You would
Yes.
never have gotten that support if you kept it to yourself.
That's
So
it.
it's really about, sharing, about healing, about community. And I think, again, that's part of the beauty of a show like this. Again, when we look at the stereotypical narrative, it's the hypersexual, super macho alpha male, black man.
Yeah.
So when a black man is talking about, being a dad, or talking about dealing with death, or dealing with these things, it hits you very different, because this is not the narrative that we are accustomed to,
Yes.
coming from people who look like this.
Yeah, yeah. When as you're talking, one of the themes that sort of came to my head is the power of connection, right? Like, there's nothing more. Well, a bunch of themes really, but I'll start with the connection piece. To know that you're going through something, or you're experiencing something. It's really easy to think you're the only one on the planet that's going through this or has dealt with this. Then you hear someone else say, "Oh yeah, this is what it is," and maybe what they're offering is sort of, well, this is what it is, and they also add into, but this is what I did to get through it, or here's how I got by it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second, I'm not alone here. So, really, when you talk about bringing together, that connection piece is so strong. Even if it was just that alone, that's a powerful, powerful force to know that you're not alone going through something.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many great conversations that I have with people, whether it's at an intermission, after the show, just about that, because I don't hear any of the poems before the show. I book the artist based on just who they are, and because I travel and I meet all these people, I'm just like, okay, I want you to do this show. So people come and they share different things. I don't know what they're going to share. It's an uncensored forum that they have to express themselves. So every year it's just different what people are going to get out of it, and because we don't know what's going to be put forward, it's always new and exciting. You can't really prepare yourself for what's going to happen, because you have no idea what people are going to share. You have no idea what's going to trigger some part of you or some experience that you've had. So it's also a very emotional experience for the audience to sit there and to take in all of this thing, but also to realize that I'm in a room with 400 or 500 other people sharing in this experience together. And it's a show that I don't record the show, I don't stream the show. You have to be there to experience the show. If you watch it online, it's different. There's something about being in the room with 400 or 500 other people staring at a stage, and there's one man on it just talking. And that shared experience, you can only get being in the room. You're not going to get it the same way if we're streaming it into your living room. So,
Understood.
I make the conscious business decision to only do it this way. If you want to experience it, you must be there, because being there is part of the show.
Yes.
That is a fundamental part of the show, is your presence as the audience, that we can feel you, right? We can hear you. Your energy is there. So, when people are at home, maybe you're there, maybe you're not there. We have no idea. You know what I mean? So,
Distractions, all kinds of stuff, right?
yeah, absolutely. So, that's a conscious decision that I make. Everybody's, trying to do a hybrid and all these kind of things. I'm not interested. I want you there, because being there is part of the show. The show isn't just these six men on stage. It's also me sitting here in this seat. I am part of the show.
Right.
So, it's not us performing for the audience. The audience is as important as those of us who are on the stage.
Yeah. I could just imagine the wave of emotions that the audience would go through as they're listening and taking in and absorbing, what's being said. Is there any way you can kind of describe what that feels like?
I mean, it's hard for me to describe because I'm never sitting in the audience,
Yeah.
I'm always, backstage trying to
Yeah.
get things going on. I usually never hear the show. So I hear about it from what people tell me,
Sure.
about the show. But, again, I think it's the anticipation of not knowing what you're going to hear, not knowing what you're going to feel. So then there's this roller coaster of, wow, I'm laughing and now suddenly I'm crying. And I don't even know how we got here. But it's like this person on stage managed to make this happen. And I think it's one of the most human experiences we can have of just listening to each other and just feeling what people are saying. And because for the most part, it's a one-way conversation. It's not like you're
Right.
thinking about responding to what somebody's saying. You're just absorbing what somebody is saying.
Right.
And I think that is part of the emotions that come from it because you have no idea going in what you're going to absorb. You're just a sponge, and then all of this stuff is going to come to you.
I love it. I love it. 25 years is a long time, Dwayne. Like to do any one particular thing. I know this isn't the only thing that you do, but one of the many that you do. When you look at year one when you started, and now where we are now, has the mission changed in any way, or has there been aspects of why you do what you do that's maybe altered or different?
I mean, the mission itself hasn't really changed because I think it's very important for us to listen to each other. I think it's very important to create space for Black men to be able to speak when we spend so much time, being silenced. When you have these narratives like, shut up and dribble. Don't your voice doesn't belong here. You just
Right.
stay in that space and do that thing that brings us money and brings us enjoyment. But the minute you open your mouth to speak about things we're not really interested in, I think fighting and combating that narrative is very important because we experience things and we have things to say, and people need to know what those things are and what those experiences are. When I first started it, it really started as a vehicle for me to be able to bring poets I was meeting when I was on tour to Toronto because there was no real other reason for them to come here.
Mhm.
Now, it's shifted from that to totally understanding why this is so important and why this is so powerful, and why the conscious decision is made to make sure that I have Black men from different places that are speaking, because people often be like Black men as though that's homogenous, as though all Black men experience the same thing. But the experience of a Black man in Chicago is different from a Black man in Detroit, is different from a Black man in Halifax, different from a Black man in Montreal. So it is so important to hear these different perspectives on life and allow those perspectives to permeate your consciousness and really make you think about your life and your place in life, and ask yourself some really serious questions about things you may not have considered. So I understand now probably way more than I did 25 years ago of
Mhm.
how important this show is.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and some of the comments I've heard from people. I remember this an older gentleman, and he was leaving a couple years ago, and he said, "This is the first time in a long time that I felt seen, that I
Wow.
felt like somebody understood my experience." And I'm
Wow.
like, that's why we're here, to make you feel like these experiences you've had aren't just in the silo, but they're people who get it, that understand it. There's another generation that's trying to, dissect it and change it and make it a little bit different, a little bit better. So, yeah, I think the main shift for me is just understanding now how important this show is. At the beginning, it was just important to bring people together. Now I understand on a bigger picture why it is so important to bring them together in this way.
It almost feels like, after year one, the next 24 years or so, is just provide you more context and reinforce, the significance and importance of why you need to keep going, and to hear, someone talk about being seen for the first time. And this is an elder statesman that that's lived life and had all these experiences and has still gone through this world, this journey, and just not being seen. I'm blown away, man. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I mean that's really what it's all about. Like for people to come, and especially the people who come and aren't black, who aren't from this community, the the learning that they get again just by listening. In the last few years we've had this big thing of allies and allyship and stuff, and I've noticed a lot of people want to be allies when they get to be in the forefront, when they get to be in the photo, when they get to be like, yeah, this is what I did. But true allyship comes when you have no power, when you're just going to sit and listen
Yeah.
and then be like, okay, what do I do with this? What do I do with all of this? There's no picture of you anywhere. There's no, hey, I'm in the forefront. It's, I'm just sitting here and I'm just listening. And now what? That's allyship, right? When you figure out the what that comes with that, to me, that's the allyship piece, right? But you have to listen to the people that you want to be advocating for. And
Yes.
I think, again, so, I've had some great conversations with people from outside of the black community who come out to the show and they're like, this is beyond what I expected. They come in not knowing what they're going to hear and they're like, this is, I didn't even know that I was going to be moved in this kind of way. So it's definitely, even though it's called When Brothers Speak, even though the thing is all black men, no one should think that they're not welcome there. It is a
Sure.
welcome space where you're just there to listen. And all people who want to listen, who believe in the power of storytelling and voice
Yeah.
should be there.
Yeah. Yeah. For those that walk away surprised, I'm wondering what walking into what they were expecting to hear or see, and then how much of a vast difference it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's one of those things too where, we battle against so many stereotypes that, oftentimes you have no idea, what's going to come out of, people's mouths. And, as I mentioned, I'm at a school right now. I've been out in Fort Erie teaching and stuff today. And, sometimes I go to schools and, I walk into the office and I got on my hoodie and my cap or whatever. And it's like, oh, this is the guest speaker. Like you can tell that the wheels are turning like, yo, what is this guy going to talk about? Like, did we make a bad choice here? Who booked this guy? You know what I mean? And it's again, you always have to fight against that idea that we don't belong,
Yeah.
we're not good enough, we're not
Yep.
supposed to be here. And doing this show again is to show people actually we're supposed to be here. We're supposed to do this. And to that point, now the show is at the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts in downtown Toronto. And people who aren't familiar with that venue, when you come in, everybody gets a seat. When we did it the first few years, it was like in a dingy place where everybody had to stand and whatever. Maybe there was
Yep.
50 chairs. There's an usher who's going to bring you to your seat, make sure that you're comfortable, all this kind of stuff. So, people like they dress up. Women go and get their hair done. They go out to dinner first and then they come to the show. So it's also very deliberate putting it in a space where poetry doesn't normally exist.
I love it.
And this is done also very consciously because we have to know that these city run buildings, we are supposed to be in them. Our
Yes.
tax dollars go towards them.
Yes.
So this idea of, oh, I'm not supposed to be in there. I'm not supposed to produce an event in there. I don't go to that venue. No, we have to challenge those ideas. We are supposed to be everywhere. So I'm
Yes.
going to take this poetry show out of the dingy
Yep.
place and put it on a stage with proper lighting, proper
Yes.
sight lines, where everybody's comfortable, where nobody stands up, and I'm going to give you a high quality experience because that is what we deserve.
Yes.
So we also have to get ourselves out of the mindset that we don't deserve nice things. Oh, we deserve the best of things.
Yep.
And as
Yep.
far as I can, I'm going to try to provide that.
Has that journey of changing that, because that also is a mindset shift, right, Dwayne? Like that's something that we, especially when you've been brainwashed, accustomed, told this is the space you're supposed to be in, and yeah, that place over there is for the other. That's not you. That's you stay over here. To make that, what's that shift? Has it been, how challenging has it been? I'm just curious what that's been like for you.
I mean, it was challenging at first, and I remember a friend of mine did a dance competition at the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts,
Okay.
and that was the first time I went there. I even went into the building, and I sat there watching this thing, and I'm like, why am I not using this? Right?
Yeah.
Up until that point, I never even thought that my
Right.
event should be in a space like that. And then
Yes.
here's my friend who's doing this event, and I'm like, the audacity of you putting this event here. I need to do this.
Right.
And so I also had to get out of my own way and get out of my own thinking and be like,
I love
no,
it.
my show deserves to be here. People deserve to have this experience. And so, I had to like go through the process of figuring out. I mean, it was a big economic shift to go from where I was doing it to now, a place like this that's unionized and all these kinds of things. But I
Yeah.
was like, no, people and and I deserve this. So this is how we're going to do it. The money part, I'll figure it out. But the optics,
Right.
the fact that we
Yeah.
are now in the space, and now the a few years ago, the St. Lawrence Center, I can't remember what anniversary they were having, but they put out this big brochure of the things that they do, and they're like, there was one page where they're like the home of spoken word, and I'm like, y'all ain't never had no spoken word before I came. But now they're claiming it as something that happens there
Right.
because for the last 15 years or so, I've been doing the show there. And for a lot of the people who come to the event, they only come to that building
For
for
that.
my event, right? So, that also allowed me to leverage some of my own power because they need this demographic to come through the door. And if I'm
Absolutely.
the only one bringing in that demographic, it
Yeah.
allows me to a position to say, okay, I need this, I need that, I
Sure.
want it to go this kind of way,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And to work with them, in a mutually beneficial way. We have a community, I don't know why, lots of people are always showing up late. These people, the box office usually closes 10 minutes after showtime. I'm like,
Right.
y'all got to keep that open like 40 minutes because I got people who are just going to show up whenever.
They'll
And
show up, but they'll just be late.
yeah, and I had to work with them to be
Right.
like, these are some minor tweaks that we're gonna have to make so that
Right.
when these people come and they're late, there's someone there at the box office with their tickets so they can go and they can get in, right? So it's recognizing that I also have the opportunity to work with the theater to change the culture there. And even talking to the management there, they're like, I have one of the few events where people actually ask to work that night.
Oh,
So
really?
people are like,
Wow.
oh, brothers, I want to work that night
Beautiful.
because it's such a different audience from what normally comes. It's a different experience from what normally happens there.
I love it. I'm just a big fan of the whole idea of showing up in spaces, having the audacity to show up in spaces where you don't belong, and or having people, look at you and prejudge you as to what they believe. I remember that. I remember years ago. This comes to mind as we're talking about this. Years ago, rapper Ice-T. Now these days, everyone knows Ice-T from just being a guy on Law and Order, but he actually was a real life rapper and had a hip hop career. I remember years ago, and you might remember this, he used to wear this gun pendant. And he used to talk about the fact that he'd love it when he'd meet people and he'd look at him and they'd have this formation in their mind of what kind of guy he is because he's got this gun and that's kind of this image. But when he opens up his mouth and speaks, you're like, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. This guy
Mm.
actually makes sense. And he always loved talking about watching that transformation and how much he appreciated that because the fact that people do come in with this preconceived notion of who you are, what you're about, and they even know nothing about you.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's part of our lived reality. I mean, it happens to everybody, but when
Yeah.
you add in things like, race and gender and whatever, oh, this is a black man, now it takes on a whole other, thing that is rooted in history and rooted in, a bunch of different things. So it's definitely one of those things that we have to, confront on a daily basis.
Gotcha. Dwayne, give me an idea, and for our audience that may not be familiar with the poetry community or how large or how vast it is. Can you provide a kind of snapshot of how big it is?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of different pockets of things that are happening. There's a lot of different youth movements that are coming up now with a lot of younger poets. You know, when I was starting out, there were no grants or support, you know, for people like me. And now there's grants where people can get money to, you know, put out books or to do albums and different things. So that has made it more viable for a lot of young people to see it as an outlet and something that they can do. So definitely it goes in waves of popularity. But yeah, in Toronto, there's quite a few opportunities and outlets available to people.
Got you. And then lastly, if we can touch on, you got six brothers showing up here. What can you tell us about them?
All right. So, I mean, obviously, I'm one of the six. So, I mean, people have heard a lot about me, so far in this conversation. We have a brother named Nigel Birch, and great writer. He does a lot of stuff on relationships, uplifting, you know, towards women. So definitely, this is his first time being in One Brother Speak live. He was part of one of the virtual ones we did during COVID, but this is his first time getting to be there live. We have the Poet Laureate of Ontario, Randell Ajay, who's going to be performing there. We have a brother named Eddie Lardy, who's representing Hamilton, and he was just representing Canada at a poetry competition in Brazil, which he won last year. I'm not sure how he did this year. We have a brother named Sully Breaks coming from the UK, and he went viral about 10 years ago with some poems that he did about, why he hates school, but he loves education, and just talking about the disconnect between school and how your marks don't necessarily indicate if you're smart or not. And people could find it on YouTube. And then we have a brother from Oakland named Sean William, and just last week, it was announced that he's nominated for a Grammy for Best Spoken Word Recording. So we have Grammy nominee Sean William from Oakland who's coming. So it's going to be an awesome night of great storytelling, and anybody who loves the word, who loves the culture, should definitely hit up Ticketmaster to make sure that they are there for When Brothers Speak on December 9th.
I do. One of the things I appreciate about it, and you talked earlier about the diversity the diversity of these Black men and the different backgrounds, the experiences, the perspectives that they all bring and they all share. And so to know that that's happening December 9th, I think it's pretty outstanding. Dwayne, congrats on 25 years of doing your thing. I don't think that that we don't forget about the work that goes into that, the dedication, the commitment, all of these things. And so gotta give you a shout out there, my friend. Good stuff. To our listeners, if we wanted to send them, where do we send our listeners if they want to check it out and learn more about it?
You just go to Ticketmaster and look for When Brothers Speak, and they got you.
There we go. Dwayne, my friend, thank you. And man, keep it rolling.
I will. Thank you so much, brother. It was great talking to you.
Same here.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.